Okay, how are we all? It's a great day, the best day at the show, I think, based on our lovely Melbourne weather. So enjoy it. So I am going to have a bit of a different chat with you guys today. So I've done these stage presentations for quite a while now. And I've take people on different journeys through Australia. But when I take them on journeys, I'm not talking about product as such. I talk about doing it safely and getting you off the beaten track and making sure you can enjoy yourself while you travel Australia. Because the last thing you want is to get halfway through your journey, have a challenge, and then all of a sudden it ends there, and then you've got some big costs to get back home. So this one's a little bit different. So what am I talking about? I think it's do's and don'ts with outback and remote and regional travel. So I'm going to take you on a Hema Maps expedition. Now I'm going to get rid of my glasses because you're all looking weird to me. So they're multifocal, as you can tell when you get old. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take you on a journey. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about navigation, preparing for journeys. Then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the journey itself. Okay, so my name's Justin. I'm from Hema Maps. I drive the LC76, which is nice and pretty down there. Actually cleaned her last night for you. That's what I do when I do outback and remote travel. So this expedition I'll take you on towards the back end of this slide was one that I actually did with my wife. So a brand new, never camped before experience for her. She's never camped before, and I took her to the Simpson Desert. So, hey, I've been many times, but for her it was a very much an eye-opening experience. But I'm going to talk to you about things that you need to know in these sort of areas, and that covers pretty much the whole of Australia. So let's get stuck into it. So who is Hema Maps? We are Australia's only mapping company. So what we've been doing for 40 years, founded by Henry and Margaret Boheim back in 1983, was when they went to do a journey across the Simpson Desert for the first time for their young family, they discovered there wasn't one piece of mapping paper available for them to have a look at. Nothing with information. It's easy enough to find stuff with like lines on it and roads. Struggling to find the station properties, you're struggling to find the permit zones, you struggle to find where and when you can and can't be. So that's what we do in this mapping space. Let me click through it. We create using our mapping data, which we collect using the Map Patrol vehicles like what I've got down there, and our alpha users, the Hema Explorer map. So we get out there, we basically drive every part of Australia so that you guys can follow in our footsteps. And that's our whole core goal of a business, based on Henry and Margaret's expedition 40 years ago, was we want you guys to follow us. So to start with, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about planning. Okay, so planning for remote expeditions. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do from a mapping point of view and why that is so important for you. So planning, a couple of things to bear in mind. Okay, I've just dropped some slides up there. So if you do a four-wheel drive training course or some remote touring training, these information points on here are things that you need to take into account. There's a lot of other things that you need to understand, but these are some generals that often get missed. One of the most important ones is the one sitting at the top. And why do I put that at the top? Okay, has anybody driven the Udnadatta track or the Birdsville track before? So you understand that if you get a little bit of water on these tracks, they do what? They close them, and you can no longer transverse them. When we did our Simpson Desert trip, which I'll take you on towards the back end of this presentation, we were being chased by the weather. So the weather in Australia, really in the desert areas, really comes northwest down to southeast. It sort of swirls down that way. And we were chased by these storms. So we knew we had to stay in front of them. So one of the things that people often overlook is understanding the weather when you're travelling in remote and regional Australia. It's a thing that you're used to it in the cities. You see your news broadcasts, but to be able to get offline data about weather is actually really important. Understanding the terrain you're driving through, and we'll look at a map and we'll talk about that in a bit. Environmental conditions. So what sort of conditions? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be humid? Is it going to involve more water? All those sort of things. Permits. Seasonal road closures. In Victoria, the seasonal roads are all closed. When do they reopen? Call it out to me, Victorians. I'm hearing silence. You live in this state or what? You don't even know when your tracks reopen. What sort of audience am I dealing with here? The date officially is the 31st of October. However, that doesn't always happen. So based on the conditions of the track, they will make a decision that sometimes they'll close and open later. So you need to be aware of this information and where to find this information out from, because it's critical. Because if you come to drive somewhere and you're trying to drive, say, the Canning Stock route, 1,000 kilometres road, at the end of the day, you can't drive it if it's closed, can you? and you've destroyed your entire expedition. So really important and gets overlooked. Track conditions, really almost impossible to figure out. No one can tell you track conditions because they're based on your skill level and your vehicle capability for someone to say, yes, you can drive it. They don't know you, your vehicle, or your capability, okay? So difficult to understand those. You need to sort of know your limits, and you try and use a good map in that source to understand it. Drinking water and food. There's one big one that everyone says, oh, hang on. You're missing something off that slide about things you should prepare about. What do you think I've missed from there that people will say, oh, yeah, this is the most important thing to understand? Who wants to call it out to me? Do you want me to go back? Can I go back? What do you think I've missed? Oh, back one more. There we go. There we go. They always say, fuel. You need to know fuel. You need to have 450,000 jerry cans of fuel. That's what they tell me. And I'm going, no. Fuel has a very simple golden rule. Do you know what the golden rule of fuel is? Where you see it, you put it in your tank. So every time you see fuel in outback, remote and regional Australia, and you see a fuel station, I don't care if you just got a quarter of a tank to top back up. Put fuel in it. Really long-range tanks should be there. You shouldn't really carry fuel external unless it's an emergency situation. I'd be updating the tanks to a long-range tank if you think you do have some challenges in that space. But you'll be amazed if you remember that golden rule, because the problem isn't necessarily about topping up as you go. It's at the next fuel station 100 kilometres down the track, there mightn't be any fuel available for you. So those are really important things to look at, but fuel is just something that you should be preparing your vehicle for rather than thinking about from a planning sense, and just remember the golden rule. Okay, not going backwards, going forwards. Okay. So what is mapping? Let's have a look at what maps actually look like. So I just chucked a generic map. It's not that exciting. I don't even know if it's one of my maps. But I've just put some mapping up there for you to have a look at, and what does it actually mean? So we can see lots of colours. So people look at our mapping data and our maps and they go, oh, they're very pretty. We don't make them pretty because we want them to look pretty. We make them pretty because information within our mapping space is created in something called a key and a legend. So if you have a look at the top sort of left-hand side, that legend there where it says transport, every different colour of road in there is a different type of road, whether it's dirt or gravel. You can have freeways that are dirt, can't you? Just because it's a highway or a freeway in outback and regional Australia doesn't mean it's not going to be dirt. Okay, so that sort of information is what goes in something called a cartographic map space. So this is cartographic mapping, okay? Colours mean something, symbols mean something, lines mean something. It comes down to what do they mean, and that's what a legend is for. But what this enables you to now do is start doing some planning and preparation. Remember we were talking about skill level and those sort of things and capability of driving and transporting yourself? You can start looking at these roads, and I can say, I think this has got the dot, maybe it doesn't quite work, but you can see these dotted lines. If I go back to my legend, they're going to be tracks. So we define tracks as, unit out of track's really not a track. People say that, they do unit out of track. It's not really a track. It used to be. It's now more of a made dirt road. Tracks are like legitimate four-wheel driving locations. So if you're driving on tracks and it's differentiated, you know that if it's going beyond my capability, is it going beyond my vehicle capability? Have I done training? Am I effectively there? You can see contours. Contours shows us some terrain information. You only need it in Victoria and Tasmania. A little bit in New South Wales. No one cares about it outside of those three states. No one cares about contours. It's not important to them. Okay? So it's a very Victorian bias thing, really, and Tassie bias thing, because you're looking at terrain for towing and those sort of things. You can see sharp switchbacks. So when the roads are turning around corners close together, am I going to be able to tow in those areas? Even if it's a dirt road, or even if it's a highway, you can have a look at the Alpine Highway in Victoria. We all know that one. She's a bit scary, isn't she, if you haven't done that for the first time and you've got a 27-foot van on the back. Reason why you can prepare using a decent mapping source. And that's what we do as a cartographic mapping style. This little slide talks about scales. So cartographic mapping is also scaled. Now that means that the distances on the map reflect by proportion the actual distances of what you travel. Scale dictates and gives you something that's in proportion. People come down to my stand and they just look at the big Australia map I've got stuck on one side of the stand down there and they go, wow, this is amazing. But all of a sudden, they start to understand the distances between places like Melbourne to Brisbane and Brisbane to Cairns, or Melbourne to Perth, or Adelaide to Perth, because it's in scale. It's not just a design map. Anybody can draw an outline of Australia and say, she's a map, and put lines on it. Scale cartographic map enables you to understand that information. It's visually presenting and helping you to rationalise distances, because your eyes are doing that. That's why it's so important. But not all maps have every bit of information. They are limited by the scale of the mapping space. Okay, so that's why sometimes you need multiple maps for certain locations. So somewhere like Victorian High Country, you need multiple maps because you've got to need more a higher scale, higher detail map to show more contour information. Okay, that's Mapping 101. Everyone seen these before? Courtesy of the ABC, I just pulled these off the ABC website. You all seen these? Oh, where's it gone? Doesn't like me. Your GPS is wrong. Don't follow it. Okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about something called routing. Okay? And you would have used routing to potentially get here today. That's your turn-by-turn navigation. Routing is not mapping. They are two different fields. The routing engine may give you a visualization of your turn-by-turn journey, but it's not looking at a map and going, okay, take this road, turn left here, take this road. It's running on algorithmic numbers. It's saying that this point from A to B, I'm assigning this a value, and to get you from point A to point B, it's taking you at the lowest value. But then the next biggest question is, where does this information come from that routing maps work on? They're very simple. They work on information that you are giving people now. So your phone is constantly communicating with multiple different businesses. If you've got an OSM-based product, you'll be getting OSM data sent back. If you've got Google, Apple Maps is OSM, for those of you that don't know, it's really an OSM source used by Amazon, Microsoft, and a few other guys to grab your data. And Google's got its own algorithmic data information set. So if you've got these things, they are giving you information back. Okay, and they are saying that, okay, if I was in my vehicle and I was driving down this road here inside Leisurefest where we are, they would say, oh, hang on a sec, he's travelling at 40 k's an hour, there must be a road there. Bang, it's on the map. Now, the problem you have in Australia is we have massive, massive cattle stations. And these cattle stations have farmhands driving all over the things. We have miners. We have national parks guys. We have people that own land. And they're driving in their cars. And all that data gets transmitted back to these crowdsourcing-based businesses. And then it comes in the mapping space. And then turn by turn uses that algorithmic information. Oh yeah, he was driving, it took him 5 minutes to go from here to here. So therefore, I'll assign that an algorithmic number of some number, stake, whatever. And at the end of it, that's how I'm going to, when you want to go from here to here, yep, you can go that way because that's the lowest number possible. Does that make sense? That's routing. It has nothing to do with opening the map and going, how do I go from point A to point B? All right? Why? You want convenience. You want to know where the traffic jams are, don't you? Oh, it's traffic jam. Yeah, it's taken everyone too long. Route me somewhere else. You want the convenience, just understand what it is. So when you travel remote and regional Australia, that's where you do often run into different locations. I'm going to keep an eye on the time because I can chat forever. So at the end of the time here, we've got how does your device know where am I? And this is where we can start talking about a couple of little things because I'm going to talk to you a bit about communication. It's a big talk today. How do you know location? So the information is loaded on a device in an offline space. If it's not loaded on a device in offline, it won't be able to be used offline. So, if you're using Google and you haven't downloaded Google Maps onto your phone and you're in an offline space, or you haven't cached the memory into your phone, it won't be available for you when you're in offline. Your location will be, because location doesn't come from your cell towers or your Wi-Fi networks, it comes from GPS as an emergency GPS transponder. GPSs work a little bit differently, but remember, location comes from GPS, Wi-Fi hotspots, and cell towers. They all provide us location, but data and communication only comes from your actual connectivity from your SIM card, okay? Different things. And a lot of people get very confused about this. So constant question I get asked, oh, I've got this, does it work offline? Yes, if you downloaded it, of course it does. because it's in your device. If you haven't downloaded or don't have the functionality to download, it won't. Understand that? All good. GPS is very different because they're hard loaded. Okay, next thing. Difference between print products versus digital products. Okay, people say, oh, digital crap, I use print all the time. Print's what you need to get. Then I have another guy, oh, mate, don't go with print, go with digital. It's much better, it's up to date and all that sort of stuff. Guess what? Both. You'd be crazy not to. If you're going to go and spend, how much does it cost to do a lap in Australia? Somebody worked it out, it's about 200 grand to do a full lap by the time you look at accommodation, fuel, all that sort of stuff. When you do those big laps for 12 months and then cost of living and all that sort of stuff when you're travelling, you're not going to spend an extra $40 on a printed map. You're crazy. You're just crazy. All right? Printed maps enable you to plan. They won't have all the information on. They probably aren't too up to date. But at the end of the day, they are a great planning tool and a great reference tool. Digital runs very different. Okay, so print will always be as up to date as it could be at the time of publication and limited to the scale of the map. Okay, digital though, a truly digital space, is available for update based on when we collect data in our vehicles or where other alpha users go and collect our data. We've got lots of ways of getting that mapping information as Australia's only mapping company, not using you guys and your phone to get my data for me. Okay. So at the end of the day, digital has that updating functionality. So now we're going to get into, how are we going for time? 12:14. I'm doing okay. I've only been going 15 minutes and I've already got to this stage. I have done okay. So, as long as I haven't bored anybody yet, you all happy? I'm giving you stuff? Good, excellent. It's all free, costs you nothing. So, at the end of the day, that's my lovely wife, okay? This is her first trip, and I'm going to talk to you about some of this junk I've got on the stage here. I'm going to talk to you about real stuff. I'm not selling you anything today. If anybody thinks I'm up here to sell you something, nah. Because guess what? If you travel, you're probably going to come back to me anyway at some stage because there's no other source of mapping data in Australia, okay? At the end of the day, we're going to take my lovely wife on a trip to the Simpson Desert. And this is the first golden rule. Pack, and then take it all out, and then take 50%. Can you remember that golden rule? Put all your stuff out, pack it. Have anyone seen, what's the show where the guy goes into hoarders' houses and pulls everything out, decluttering shows, all that sort of stuff? My wife's a hoarder at the best of times. So declutter your van or your vehicle. Don't ever do that. That's what my wife does to me. I would take, when I travel, see those 3 tubs? They sit in the back of the car. That is it, and I will do 2 months with that. Okay? Because I'll get food as I go, because I want to contribute back to regional and remote communities as I travel, because I need them still to be there. I need the pink roadhouse to still stay in existence, because if it don't, what can't I get? What was that thing that's most important we're going to do? Fuel. I don't care about anything else. I just want you stay there and keep trading so you can give me some fuel. So whenever I go in, I always buy some stuff, buy some ice cream or some chutney or something like that. At the end of the day, buy as you go, but just bear in mind, weight's really, really critical. And it's not just that. If I'm doing that in a 4-wheel drive, what I'm going to do to myself? Probably kill myself. If I bounce on some bouncers, it's going to jump up and down and all that sort of stuff. Bad. Not good. Not demonstration of how Hema Maps operates, how my wife operates. So, working again? I don't know why it keeps doing it. It must be me. Maybe it's my aura or something. I don't know. People say I have a magnetic personality. Comedy joke as well. Here we go. This is a map. So this is just a map of where we're going. So we're doing the Simo. To get to the Simo, you've got to go via Broken Hill. You've got to travel a lot of Australia to do it. So what does a good map show you? Besides just the roads, the road types and contours, we're also looking at some other cool little things. So do you see on a decent map there, we've got some pink writing. A lot of people they look at a map and they go, oh yeah, I can see roads on it. I don't buy a map for roads. I buy maps for the information around the area I'm travelling to. The Udnadatta track, you don't need a map for the Udnadatta track. It's one road. You're not turning left or turning right at it. You can't get lost in it, really. I'll tell you that now. But it's the information that you will miss, which is why you get it. So all those little pink things, and there's one there called Walkaringa Historic Site, just off the Barrier Highway. We've gone through some big things. Everyone always goes through some big things on the Barrier Highway. Everyone's seen the big things in Australia. Everyone's got to do the big things. We do a map now for that. You can just tick it off. Not a great navigation map, but it's a good record map. At the end of the day, that little pink thing that was on that map, that Walkaringa Historic Site, what do I see there? I see lots of different things to go and start playing. So there it is in a little bit more detail based on the printed map. and then I can have a look and start having a look at some of the early settlers in Australia. I can start looking at some of the historical stuff. So this was my wife's first experience in outback and remote travel. So she's getting to have a look at some of these terrific areas, some terrific places to go and stop and see. Now this is just off the Great Barrier Highway. These are dirt roads, because I can tell that by the mapping space, can't I? So at the end of the day, I'm not driving anything too hard. Our second space that we stopped was a place called Chambers Gorge, okay, which is an Aboriginal engraving site. Again, if I'm looking at a mapping space, that's at the top right-hand side. I'm seeing that in pink. I'm seeing there's also a campsite there. So this information is really, really important. So my wife is about to have her first ever camping experience. Who's not been camping before? And if you say caravan parks are not camping, they're hotels. Hotels on wheels. Who has been camping before, not in a caravan? Broke it again. So at the end of the day, I'm taking her on the first time outside of a caravan park, outside of an area. So I've picked a place which I know is pretty cool. Walkaringa is an amazing space to see, but I'll tell you what, Chambers Gorge with the rock engraving is really good. So here's my first setup, my first night. So we're going to get a nice sunset. Golden rule of travelling, always be camping by the time the sun sets. Be ready for sunset. A, you need the light to set up, but B, it's cool. Sit down. And now we're going to go to my first camping experience. And you can have a look while I sleep in down there. So it's all sitting up down there if you want to go and have a look. And the first thing my wife says to me, she said, I need to go to the toilet, where's the bathroom? And I go, okay. Now we come to one of our often overlooked tools. This is my shovel. One of the mistakes I see people make, first-time travellers of Australia, is they go to Bunnings and they go, yes, I know I'm going to have to do number 2s and number 1s out in the desert. I'm going to need to bury that. How far do we dig? Guys, who wants to know? Tell me, how far do we dig down when we need to do number 1s and number 2s? Anyone want to know? Call it out. You can't be wrong. I'm here to explain. So about 30 centimetres. So a little bit bigger than that shovel blade is what we dig down, okay? So potting shovels are fine if you're on the beach, aren't they? Or digging through potting mix. Where we are there, can you see the ground? And there's my shovel. It's in the photo, I didn't know that. Can you see the ground there? It's rocky. It's hard. So I'm like this. I need to go. And I'm trying to dig with my little potting shovel. So what ends up happening is people don't dig down, and that's where the horrendous, horrible stuff happens. And they don't look after our environment and our campsites. You need a decent shovel. There's a bit of weight. Have a feel. You want to have a feel. Pass it around. I don't care. That's not a mucking around shovel, because if I need to go to the toilet, I am physically want to go quickly. I want to be able to dig it. So we're not talking around. Getting something that's going to be lightweight. Really important thing. People overlook them. They go and see aluminium shovels and they buy them and think they're okay. You need something big, because you don't know if you're going to go through rocks or if you're going to go through something else. Anyway, moving on from toileting. Make sure I get my shovel back. That's $400. At the end of the day, going to head out from Walkaringa. Trudy's had her first experience. She's gone, yeah, this is okay. So this is where it's always really important to know what's coming up with. Okay, so we've got a place called Blinman sitting here in the middle of this map. Can you see that? Lots of pink stuff around it, so things to see as we're travelling. Okay, Blinman has this amazing little location. It's got this pie shop, and it sells. Has anyone been to Blinman before? Have you had the pie? Miner's pie. So what's so special about the miner's pie? That's exactly right. Main course and dessert. It's got apple one side and it's got normal pasty the other side. So you think it's going to mix, don't you? I don't know how the hell they do it, but it doesn't mix. It's amazing. It's actually brilliant. So go in, support these little places. They're really well worth supporting. But how do I know that was there? That's what that mapping space is. Is there fuel there? Do I fill up with fuel? All those sort of magic things. So I'm going to load up with fuel at Lee Creek, and I'll tell you a little story. Do you see Lee Creek on the map? People have come to me before, oh, your map's wrong. And they go, oh, hang on a sec, Lee Creek's there and Lee Creek's there. Can anyone see that down the bottom of that page there? Lee Creek's twice on the map. Is it wrong? Does anyone know why it's on the map twice? Yes, call out. That's exactly right. They moved the whole town because underneath the town, it was full of rare minerals. So they basically picked the whole town up and moved it. Yeah, well done. Congratulations. But I love these sort of things. Just pass that one back up to me. That's absolutely wonderful. Because I want to go number 2s and my shovel will be missing and I'll be in all sorts of strife. But either way, that's one of those cool little things that you find out about travelling remote Australia. So we're driving you down a track. It's not about the drive. I'm not driving the M1 to Melbourne. I'm driving to explore. I'm looking for pink things to go and see. I'm looking at fuel. I'm looking at a place like Farina. Farina's got an underground bakery. It's not open all year round. It's run by a volunteer society, so you can see little bits of information that appear in the mapping space. This is cartographic mapping. It's providing you visual information around where you can go and see things, whether it's cemeteries, whether it's to physically go into the town centre itself. There's the cricket pitch, all those sort of things to have a look at. And the beauty about it, there's also, as you would understand, the underground bakery. My wife loves a vanilla slice. So she's camped for the first night, not really impressed about this toileting situation, going, how many more days have we got to do with this? And I said, we'll do about 18, maybe 20. And she'll go, it's boring. Okay, so I've made her a bit happier by filling her with vanilla slices. So that was my first part for day 2. Jumping on the Udinadatta track. As I said, track, road, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it was probably a track. It's really just a made dirt corrugated road now. But at the end of the day, as I was saying to you before, it's really important to understand weather, okay? And I'm going to segue from this for 2 seconds. And I'm going to, oh, that's my knife. Wrong side. Where'd I put it? There it is. It's on my leg. Do you know, when you need to have extra hands, you never have them. I don't know why we weren't invented with 3 hands. How much more efficient would we be? This is a Zoleo. Has anyone ever heard of a satellite communicator? Sat phones died about 10 years ago. No one carries sat phones now and haven't for years and years and years and years. Okay? Zoleo, or there's Garmin InReach PLBs. Personal life-saving beacon, so it's got an SOS button. This is mine from the car, so if I activate it, I'm going to have every cat man and his dog come to save me. Save me, not my car. My car's stuck there. But the other thing with Zoleo and Garmin and most of the PLBs is they'll give you offline weather information. I can send text messages via satellite anywhere in Australia. At the top of it, it's got a check-in button that I can press and I can actually check in. So when I'm travelling, I send a message to my work. Every night I get to a campsite, so they know where I am, and it goes to the owner of Hema Maps, my boss, my wife, my son, not my daughter because she's not trustworthy, and my father because he's nosy. So they get a message of where I am every night. So that's how we communicate, but that's why weather is important, and that's how we figure out weather. So when we're jumping on this Udinadatta track from Maree and starting to head down, then we can turn around and make some decisions. One of the first things you'll see on the Udinadatta track is the old Mutonia Sculpture Park. It's been around since the 60s. Bear in mind, it's really windswept. I wouldn't have my afternoon tea or lunch there. It's good to have a walk around, get back in the car and keep going. It does get fairly busy, okay? One of the most important things that get overlooked on the Udinadatta track is Australia's greatest natural wonders. Okay, we always forget about it. We're too worried about driving. We're too worried about things that we can see rather than things we can't see. Who knows what Australia's greatest geological natural wonder is? Silence? It's always good. Not Lake Eyre. Close though. That's Australia's largest drain. So everything rains up the top and all drains down. So it comes north to south, doesn't it? So the globe's, everyone's seen a globe. Globe, it's north to south, top of the globe, it all drains to the bottom of the globe. That's right, isn't it? That was a comedy routine, guys. No, Lake Eyre is, do you know how far below sea level Lake Eyre is, sir? Close. It's about 24, 27 k's below sea level. So the reason why everything drains down from north to south is because it's going downhill. Not the globe, but downhill. It is in fact downhill. So it is Australia's biggest drain, but that's actually not Australia's largest geological wonder. And I've got the map up here with some pink stuff on it. What is pink stuff again? Stuff to see, stuff to look at. And I'm seeing something that says the Bubbler and Blanche Springs. What do you think they may be in relation to? Australia's largest geological wonder, which is the Great Artesian basin. Because it's not in our face, we don't turn around and go, wow, this thing is here. It's big. It's like Uluru, ooh, big rock. Great Barrier Reef, ooh, pretty rocks. This is not visible, so we only see it in certain locations. So the Great Artesian Basin, obviously there's some water flow which feeds into the Artesian Basin, but at the end of the day, the Artesian Basin is an amazing resource Australia has. It is the largest Artesian Basin in the world. Where can you see it? That's Lake Eyre. Don't ever do graffiti. No graffiti. But at the end of the day, that's Lake Eyre. But what we really want to look at is the Artesian Basin. So Artesian Basin, you'll see these in little springs. You'll hear about the hot springs. You'll see them bubble out. But the bubblers are like little volcanic mounds. If you were looking at them from here, and I can see some of the bubblers in front of me, some of these mineral springs, they would look like little volcanic cones. You'd think they're anthills sometimes. And the early explorers actually missed a lot of them. They didn't realise that at the top of these little volcanic mounds was all these amazing ecosystems, okay? Water to look at. Water you can't drink because it's very brackish, obviously, being an Artesian Basin. Some of the Indigenous population did actually condition themselves to drink it in emergency. No way in hell can we drink it. And I'll tell you now, it's worse than drinking seawater. But at the end of the day, they're a great thing to see, and there's something that's really amazing to have a look at, okay? So make sure you stop and spend some time. Look at those pink things. We don't want you just to drive from Maree to Oodnadatta, okay? Weather, racing the rain. So we've talked about the closure of the track. Why do you think they close the Oodnadatta track when it rains? Why? Black soil? Yes. This. So if anyone's worked with bull dust or desert dust, desert water or desert cement, so you get taller when you walk on it, which is great. But the other thing is it plugs up tyres. Now, if you want to have a look after this talk and go and have a look at the 76 down there and look at my tyres and you go, how in hell's name did that mud not come off? You'll understand what I'm talking about. And this is where we talk about tyre pressures. This is where we talk about tyres and all those sort of magic things as well as we're travelling remote and regional Australia. So things like tyre pressure to do corrugations, we lower our tyre pressures and we increase our speed on corrugations. We understand why we do that. So we are trying to bridge the corrugation. So think of corrugations like that. We lower our tyre pressure to make our tyre longer and we increase our speed to Evel Knievel over the top of the corrugation. And that's how it flattens out. A lot of people make the mistake of lowering tyre pressures and slowing down. If you're getting bumping, speed up. That's the trick. And that's, again, one of those things that you need to understand about travelling corrugated roads in Australia. Speed is actually really, really important. They're both important. The other thing is to make sure you have in-date tyres and quality tyres. If anyone's going to travel a track like the Oodnadatta track on a road tyre, you're just wrong. Just don't do that, okay? They're designed for bitumen and bitumen only. An all-terrain would be a minimum tyre requirement for the Oodnadatta track, and that includes whatever you're towing, okay? Why? Because you're going to try and shed some of this mud that builds up. And that's the other reason why a great big shovel like what I showed you before is really important, because you're taking off almost 100, 200 kilo of mud from underneath the vehicle. That's also why when the weather gets too wet, they close the thing down, because it's exceptionally dangerous to be travelling at high speed to avoid the corrugations in basically on slick wheels, because they've been full of the mud. And that's where accidents and it becomes dangerous driving conditions, okay? That's why they close those tracks. So Oodnadatta track, lots of things to see. This is where I turn around and say the real name for the Oodnadatta track. Who wants to know what the real name is for the Oodnadatta track is? Yes? Sorry? Yes, you'd like to know. Okay. What was it built for? The Garn. So not the Garn, but basically the old Gann line. Okay, so the Oodnadatta track actually follows the old Gann line. So I would like to change your name mindset. You can call it the Oodnadatta Track. That's by all means is what it's called officially. But change your mindset when you travel it. Call it the old Ganline Track. And that will make you stop and start to look at some of the cool things to see as you travel this amazing piece of Australia. Have a look at some of the old sidings. Look at how the steam locomotives used to refuel and get water, because water was the biggest problem. It wasn't necessarily coal, it was water, is what they had to have the sidings for, to keep putting water into the engines to create steam so that they could travel. So when you have a look, there's lots of things you can do. I keep forgetting there's start pickets and all sorts of things you can bring with you which you can pick up. So it's well worth having a look. When we get to Oodnadatta, obviously everyone goes to the Pink Roadhouse. Why? We need fuel. Great selection of food and pasties and stuff, and it's actually pretty reasonably priced there. From Oodnadatta, we're going to start talking about the Simpson Desert. So this is about 3 days into the expedition. So first thing is, who does itineraries for their trip? Stop it. Stop it now. It's a guess and a guide. So you can do a trip guide if you'd like. Because when you have this mindset that, oh, hang on, this is cool, you become an explorer and adventurer, and you start enjoying yourself 10 times more than just going to where all the lemmings have told you to go. I go to this space and I eat this ice cream. It is good. I go to this, you know what I'm talking about? Start being explorers. It's we're humans. It's what we've been built for, to explore Australia. You can still do that on these locations. So don't constrict yourself too much with timelines, okay? I know we all have jobs and all that sort of stuff. Guess what? I ended up having to take an extra 4 days. Why? Because I got trapped. Bad luck. Sorry, can't get back. I'm trapped in the middle of the Simpson Desert. Because I got Mazzolio to tell them, I'm okay. So it does happen. But change your mindset. So we're going to go Oodnadatta up to Mount Dare. So Mount Dare's up at the top of the screen there. Oodnadatta's from down there. So Mount Dare is basically like the gateway to the Simpson Desert. So we're doing a west to east crossing, otherwise known as a chicken run. So the easy crossing is west to east because of the way the sand dunes work. Last place to get fuel before you cross the Simpson Desert. In my 70 series, I probably went through to cross the whole Simo and get back to Birdie. Probably about 100 litres of fuel. It's not much. You actually, if you have a normal tank, a normal long-range tank, which anyone travelling outback Australia, you should, long-range tank, people go and get lifts and they get recovery points, which are critical, and we'll talk about those in a sec. But either way, long-range tank is the thing that gets over-missed, to be honest. Long-range tank, 100 litres of fuel. Last place to fill up, and then off I can go. See the weather conditions? I am racing this rain as I'm travelling. One thing to just remember about Mount Dare and all these different outback pubs, remember they've all got fuel in them, so you stop and get fuel, and you also stop and get your other fuel, the amber fuel, the good fuel. Okay? Why? We're selfish. We want them to stay in existence so we can continue to travel this amazing land. Okay, so Simpson Desert, I'm going to give you some great little pieces and some advice about Simpson Desert and stuff to take with you and travel. So I'm aiming for a 12:45 finish, so I'm going to try and rush through this bit at the end. So we're going to head across what they call the French line. So the French line starts at Puny Ball. So you can see that sort of sitting there. You've got a couple of cool places to see. Dalhousie Springs, where little fishies come and eat you. Artesian Water, really busy. I call it a caravan park. I don't call it outback camping. I try not to stay there unless you really have to. I try and get on. But I stop and have a swim and all that sort of stuff. Cold showers, cool place to be, but does get very, very busy. Who's been there before? Dalhousie. Yep. Know what I'm talking about? Yep. So we're going to head off and we're going to leave Dalhousie Springs and we're going to head across the actual French line. And the first place we go into the French line is at Mungithiri National Park, otherwise known as Simpson Desert. So the first thing is you need permits. Permits, people. Very easy to get permits. The governments are very good at selling you stuff. Have you discovered that? They will make it easy for you to find your permits. Very simple stuff, okay? Buy your Desert Parks permit, job done, okay? Other thing is UHF Channel 10, and I forgot to grab a UHF. You all carry UHFs, not to go and listen to the truckers and say, John and Mary available on Channel 40. Nah, you do it for this stuff. So if I'm going to travel across the Simpson Desert, I have to announce my position every 15, 20 minutes or so. Why? Because people can't see you and it stops them smashing into your car. Why do you do it every 15, 20 minutes? How far can you get out of a UHF standard? I normally say 1 kilometre per watt. So So if you've got a 5-watt transmitter, which is the largest legal transmitter in Australia, you're looking at about 5K. Sometimes you'll get more. I'm not going to go through how that all works, and based on land types and air pressure and all that sort of magic stuff. There's people over there to explain that better than I can. But at the end of the day, if you're driving and announcing your position, hey, we're travelling eastbound on the French line, we're just passing Puny Bore, somebody's going to hear that and go, oh, they must be within 5Ks. So then they'll normally call out and they'll announce their convoy if they're coming east to west. Why? So you don't run into each other and going over the top of the sand dune. If you think a sand flag's going to save you, it won't. Announcing your position will. So you need to know roughly, or pretty, not roughly, but close enough to know where you are, and then remember those things to announce your position. So really important thing to travel with you. Sand dunes are pretty easy things. Tyre pressure dropped to about 20 PSI on those sort of tyres down there. Very easy driving. In fact, most people untrained could drive the Simpson Desert. Just with a bit of basic common sense and understanding capability of four-wheel drives, okay? You don't need anything too special. Lots of dingoes, you'll see all that sort of magic stuff. And this is where my wife fell in love with the desert. She hated it up till here. Hated Dalhousie, it's full of mosquitoes. Hated the fact that she's sort of in mud every 5 minutes of the day. Hated it. First night, the first dingo, the second camel, 150 messages on Mazzolio later. Oh, I've just seen this dingo. All these dingoes got pups. All this is cool. She was in love. And then when she saw her first desert night, she was in love with the deserts. The deserts are the most amazing places in Australia, and they will change your life, no matter where you come from. Go and see them. Get out there, okay? So I'm not going to talk about deserts and all that sort of stuff. Exiting the French line, you've got a couple of things to cross. You've got things like you're exiting via salt lakes. You've got clay pans. Just be aware that when you're driving clay pans, first thing is don't do that. Don't drive off where somebody else has already driven, okay? Stay in the tracks that have been created, and you're going to get to have some of these experiences. So I'm going to stop here, okay, which is the next part of the Simpson Desert, why I ended up taking an extra 5 days off work, called the Hay River Track, my favourite track in Australia. But what I'm going to talk to you a bit about is some of the junk I carry in the 76, okay? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some recovery gear, how to set up your car. Remember, I don't set cars up for a living. This is just information of somebody that's a seasoned outback desert traveller who does a lot of this sort of stuff around Australia, okay? So a couple of things. We've talked about the shovel. We've talked about UHF. We've talked about satellite communication. If you want to go and buy a Starlink, they're brilliant, but they're a pain in the backside to set up, but they're getting better. The mobile ones now you can attach to your roofs and vans and that sort of stuff. They work really well. You can do VoIP phone calls on them, but the problem is though, it's this emergency PLB function which is still pretty important for you. And the other thing is, to see how small that is? My wife is an avid bushwalker. Got lost in Tassie half a dozen times. This has saved her life. Because she presses, this is my location, and I text her back saying, this is where you are, turn left. You'll be right. Or I'm on my way, I'll find you. So at the end of the day, really, really important bit of kit. What other bits of kits do I have here? Well, I am going to talk about recovery gear, okay? Anybody travelling anything remote in Australia should have at least a front recovery point and a rear recovery point. So vehicles come out of factories with something called a tie-down point. They're designed to be tied down inside a container. They are not for recovery because the load of the recovery is greater than the weight of the vehicle. So a recovery point is designed to handle an increased load. Because if your car is stuck, it's harder to get out than if it's just on bitumen, okay? So front recovery points, always fit a vehicle with one front recovery point. Do you need a winch? Not necessarily, but a front recovery point for someone to help you out and snatch you out is critical. The other thing is a rear recovery point. So we all have rear recovery points. What's our rear recovery point on our vehicle? It's our hitch. So you've all got hitches on your vans to plug into your caravans or whatever. So that hitch has got a locking pin. That is a rear recovery point. The only thing is, it's the rating of the recovery point that changes. This is basically called a hitch pin recovery point system there. So it's designed to have a soft shackle attached through it. I would advise you to carry one of these, especially if you're going without the van, else you've got your rear recovery point, okay, which is your hitch. You need to be able to recover your vehicle. It's critical, else it's stuck there. In terms of what else do we cover? We cover a variety of tools. Am I a mechanic? No way. I'm not a mechanic. I am a terrible mechanic. I struggle to put oil in the engine, to be perfectly honest, but I have to do mechanical safety checks. I have been driving multiple times and have the magic engine warning light come on. Who's had that? So I carry something like this. This is an OB2 scanner. And if you've ever been driving the ute and other track and you've hit the corrugations and the vibrations and all your sensors have come up and then your warning lights have come up on your dash, your engine critical light comes up on your dash, take back to Toyota, it's about to explode, stop driving, or limp mode kicks in, something like this will enable you to diagnose the problem and then erase your code and then see if it reoccurs. So something like an OBD2 scanner, because you don't want to drive and destroy your car. Like if it's telling me I've got a turbo valve leak, at least it gives me a place I can start looking at it. If I've got something like I had an underboost issue the other day, happened once, didn't come back. So I'd say it's just me putting the pedal down too long, or could have been a bit of fuel contamination. I've had water in which filter. Those sort of things are important to diagnose, and you can fix those yourself. If you can't, then you can phone a friend using either Starlink or text using your Zolio. Text your mechanic. I texted my mechanic the other day. I was in the middle of Hatter National Park, and I said, listen, I've just had this come on. And he's gone, what's the code? And I've gone, it's this, this, and this. He's gone, oh yeah, that's fine. Who cares? Off you go. Easy, isn't it? That saved me $1,000 for recovery. So those little things are important to take. And then a basic toolkit. You don't need every tool known to humankind, but a basic toolkit. Things like a torque wrench for your tyres, okay, to make sure you torque your tyres, because people break kin nuts and wheel nuts all the time, and especially on things like vans. Tyre pressure sensors are really, really cool to grab. But the other thing too, you then need to have a look at, based on your recovery scenario, is I'll give you a couple of little tricks, because I am starting to run out of time. Anyone, you probably can't see, but this is my recovery kit. It's pretty full. Can anyone see what's on top of it? You can see the ring. Yep, what else is on top of it? What's this thing? It's my raincoat. Because do you know what? I've never got bogged when it's not raining. It's just one of those things. So things like you find, and a number of times we were driving you down a track 12 months ago, and there was a guy that had punctured his tyre, and it's pissing down rain. So things like, be aware of something like just a raincoat near your recovery stuff where it's easy for you to get to, and things like a ground sheet that you can sit on top of as well. So those sort of things are cool. Then there's a variety of recovery gear that I carry in here. I've got a winch, so I've got the ability to winch myself out of situations. Remember, really, you shouldn't be recovering the vehicle and van together, or vehicle and trailer together. You really should try and recover them separately based on the weight and the load of what your recovery points will be. Sometimes you have to, but just bear in mind you are normally exceeding your working load limits. Anyone's a tradie here? You all know what WLLs are. Okay? So recovery kits are really, really important to take. Scanners, be aware of setting yourself up. Communication we've talked about. Fuel we've talked about. Then the other big thing that people miss out and also forget is water. I take jerry cans, and they're off the back of the 76. I don't use those for drinking. Those are I call it contaminated water. So if you're thirsty today, don't go to my jerry can and turn the tap on. You don't know what's going to come out of there. And I'm telling you, there could be some real nasties in there by the time I leave it sitting there for a while. That's my washing up water. My need to wash my hands, have a quick wash my body off water. I carry just water cubes that you buy from the supermarkets, and I run those down the back of the vehicle, okay? Because that's my drinking water, okay? Washing up water, cleaning water separate. So I try and keep that separate, because then I can put any water into it. If you want to carry normal drinking water in a jerry, that's cool, but make sure you probably have one that's just for dodgy water. Because sometimes it's all you can get is dodgy water, and you don't want to contaminate your water tanks, okay? So bear those sort of things in mind. Water is normally what you run out of. Food, you always have too much of. If you're traveling solo, A fridge freezer is really, 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 really important. Okay, they've gradually changed in the market space with dual batteries and those sort of things. Your freezer is critical. I carry frozen veggies, I carry frozen meat. I can go out off grid for 14 days. Because they're frozen vegetables from the supermarket, I can cross state lines and I don't have issues with disposing of vegetables and those sort of things. Those little tips make it much easier. And when I'm travelling, and one of the things that my wife actually experienced, and she was quite amazed at it because she thinks I eat junk food every time I'm travelling. But at the end of the day, she just go and eat like I do at home, no different. So I've got to finish this up because I've gone for far, far too long. We're probably over bandwidth on this presentation anyway. If you do have any questions, I'm going to, instead of doing them here, I'm going to walk over to the 76, so I can open up the 76 and you can have a look at anything else you would like. Else we're back on stand, but come over and see me on the 76. I'll just pack this stuff up, chuck it on the trolley, and if you want any questions answered, come and speak to me over on the 76 because sometimes I can open the car and explain some different things at the same time. Anything else, guys? Have a great day. Enjoy. Thank you.